Well, good morning, folks. This is Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of technical problems on my end. My computer was not working, my Mac, so I had to go ahead and restart it. And I don't know if Wayne got here he did get the invite, so let's go ahead and bring Wayne in. So sorry we got a different look here. Just had for some reason, my Mac did not want to play nice with me this morning. So we're going to go ahead and bring Wayne in and we will get started. I'm still recovering from the last day of the rapture, so you got to give me some room. So I think Wayne is with us now. See if I can right, I got to get down here. Okay, yeah, the Mac didn't want to work, Wayne, so I had to reboot it. So here we are.
well, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too. Sorry for the delay, folks, but sometimes these things just can't be helped.
It's technology.
It is technology, and somebody's pinging my iPhone, which is in the kitchen. I'm sure it's Tamu saying, "Oh my God, where are you, Tamu?" I mean, she is right on it. If you're 30 seconds late, Tamu starts pinging and saying, "Try this, try that, try this, try that."
I sent you a couple of texts too.
It might be, and if it's not Tamu, it's Wayne.
Yeah, well.
See, I need that because I'm the guy that's just seat of the pants, and you guys are actually looking at things. Except for Tamu does not read instructions, so that's what she says. Oh, I don't read the directions.
Yeah, well,
I thought that was a man thing, that not reading directions.
But here's an interesting thing. I, at one time, contracted out technical writers when I lived in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And the best technical writers were women. Hands down.
Interesting.
If you want to get a good script, I have found more women to be more talented in that area. So that's just what I found.
Tamu says it was not her, but it was killing her not to text.
It's like, I'm going to get it. Well, last night was great, wasn't it?
Yeah, what'd you think about that? We went for 3 hours. I mean, you weren't there for quite all three, but you were there for a lot of them.
Yeah. The energy was high. It was that was a good group. That was a good way to, I think, tell people that you don't have to be gripped by fear, tradition, or dogma.
Absolutely not. I agree with you 100%. And it was nice to see everybody. It seemed like everybody had their hair down a little bit. I mean, Rex was a little more relaxed, and you see him on his show. Heidi was a little more relaxed.
It was a tremendous, great energy across the board.
It was. Yeah. And it was good to get to know Ransom. I don't really know him much before this weekend.
Yeah, he seems to be a really aware person.
He does. He seems to have a lot going on. Somebody in that chat room, sometimes I can't say these names. The alchemy in that group was excellent. Not one bad apple in the whole bunch.
Well, there was positive energy that was definitely being created.
And the most amazing thing, Wayne, is that Tamu and Gina stayed up the whole time. Usually 9:30, 10 o'clock, she's in bed. Yeah, and she's back up now making pancakes and stuff.
Wow, I want some.
Absolutely. Wayne's drinking orange juice.
Yes, and it's cloudy and damp, and we're enjoying it.
Absolutely. And 7P out of left field says Satan is an invention of the church.
Well,
what do you think?
Let me tell you something. I'm going to share my screen so everyone can see where I'm coming from.
You bet. And I do believe the church created the devil, by the way. He's a thought form, or at least one manifestation of him is.
So I have been reading this book. Anyone wants this, I can send you the PDF on it. This is the Jesus Mysteries, written in 1999. Was the original Jesus a pagan god?
Absolutely.
Let me tell you. So you see that right there? What do you think that is?
Oh, that looks like Jesus on the cross.
Yeah. Houston, we got a problem. You see, this is actually 3rd century Greek. That's Ophias Baracus, who is actually, this represents Osiris Dionysus.
Hmm.
And you see, what we have a problem here is that this goes back to nearly 3000 BC. The whole story about the virgin birth, the Son of God, the changing water into wine, the riding into town with palms being laid down on the back of an ass, that story originates 3000 years BC. So
Absolutely.
the excuse me, I have allergies here, but so here's the thing, Jeff. This book, I have been searching for the answers. We all know instinctively that something wasn't right. I mean, that's why we're here. And I have contended that what we have been under is a God spell. And it was cleverly crafted by master magicians, of which happened to be represented in deep inside the Roman Empire. Excuse me. So as we go forward, the original Christians who believed in the Dionysus story, the birth of a child from a virgin by God, the Son of God, they knew this to be an allegory. They knew it was never supposed to actually happen. It was alchemy. It was a guidepost to let you ascend to a Christ state. And this becomes a problem because there were two foundations. There were the literist, and then there were the Gnostics. Guess who won?
From the history, I would say it was the literist, huh?
Yeah. So,
and what's the name of this book again, Wayne? I can't see the title. The Jesus Mysteries. Okay.
Yeah, I'll get this down so everyone. So here it is. So yesterday I spent, I guess 6-7 hours in research. You went to Bible school, so let me ask you the following questions. And I wrote at the top of my paper, where is Satan in the Old Testament? Well, you could go and you can say, well, he shows up the first time in Genesis 3. I would debate you on that, but all right, I could give that to you as well. All right. The next question I have is, where do we see Satan show up again? In his name, literally. It's in Job 6:12. Now, here we have a problem. It always has been for the church, because it's going to make sense as I pull this into my next statement. In Job 6:1-6-12, Satan is amongst the sons of God. He's not banished. He's among them. And it said it came time for them to give themselves an account before God. And then we get the discourse between God and Satan. And Satan is known as the accuser and the adversarial one. That's what he's known. So the next question I have is, where do we see Satan ever attacking Israel or any mortal at all? Have any answer on that in the Old Testament?
Those are very good points. I've actually got a little bit of a different view on at least part of it. I think if you look at it historically, Job is very likely the oldest book in the Bible.
Correct.
It may be Genesis, but more than likely Job. And I think, I'm trying to remember exactly where the chapter is where they had the big meeting, and Job, they're talking about Job. Have you considered our servant Job? That's
yeah. Mm-hmm.
What chapter is that? Have you considered our servant Job?
That's chapter 1.
Chapter 1, right? Yeah. Okay.
Verse 6, and it's actually going where they get in the discourse. Correct.
Right. So if you look at that chapter just from the text and in context with everything else, I believe that this is actually Yeah, now there comes a day when the sons of God came to present themselves against the Lord, and Satan came amongst them. If you look at that straight from the Hebrew, I think it reads thusly: there was a day when the Elohim gathered together, and Yahweh came as an adversary among them, or with an adversarial position. And from a strictly textual standpoint, my contention that this is a meeting where the Elohim got together. They had a plan on how to deal with humanity, and the Lord was an adversary to that plan, or AKA a Satan, because Satan actually means adversary. So what I see here is a meeting where the Lord, Yahweh, is adversarial to the rest of the Elohim. That's just what I take from it strictly textually.
I love that, because this plays perfectly into my next point.
Sorry about that.
You cannot show me any place in antiquity or the Old Testament where there's Satan worship. It's not written about. Doesn't have, I can't find any records. Only until the Christian church is formed, suddenly we have to have an antithesis. We have to have an opponent. Otherwise, the religion is not valid.
Well, you can't have, and you know, the way I see it, and I think you're right on, because, and you're still sharing your screen, right? That's not me.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay, no worries. I just want I think Satan was created by the church, the powers that be, you know, as the great boogeyman to scare everybody into church. You got to come to church, because if you don't, this guy's going to get you. So it's a classic control mechanism.
So the next point becomes this: if Satan is created by the church, then the church created the worship of Satan.
They did.
There's no other way to look at this, Jeff. None. Because even the watchers in Genesis 6:4 did not worship Satan. They were accountable to the archangels, Gabriel, Raphael, as usual. Correct?
Yeah, I haven't really studied that deeply, so I'll have to look at that before I can give an answer.
Okay, check that out. So Satan is not in there. He's not. So this is, to me, the biggest mind coitus that you could really get to, because the fear becomes so much more ingrained than the so-called benefit. And this book, as anyone wants it, as you get into it, and there's another one behind it explaining where Mother God went to.
Oh, excellent.
Because they removed her. She is actually hell.
I can see that.
So here's how it breaks out. If God created us and he's our father, he had to bring forth a son. Now, this is where they really get you. They try to insert the Holy Spirit as the feminine, and they go back to the Hebraic. You see, it only works for them, the Hebraic history, when it justifies their position. And if you say that Christianity is monotheistic in its basis, well, we all have discussed this. Well, then how does the Trinity fit in? The Godhead? Right. You know, come on, folks. So we still don't have Mother God. She's been banished. And so if you're ready for this, if the Father rejected you, where do you go? You go to hell. She's mother. What the church did, the literalist, they came in and completely removed the feminine, and they put that into the story of the virgin. And then that pacifies the argument just on the surface that that's the female representative of God. But you got a problem, because we know even Jesus said about his brothers and sisters. Well, then, so Mary's no longer a virgin here. And so we get into this continued mind game they do to us. So getting back to Satan, so who is he? I wrote they elevated the statute of a being, a celestial being, and the devil is the post-Christian invention of that.
Very, very interesting.
And regardless of how you want to address this, you can't dismiss it. Is Satan real? Is the power? Because, you know, I did a little Bible study, and it's real interesting when you get into Colossians, for instance. In the book of Colossians 2:15, I believe, it says, God stripped him of all power and authority. Well, how does that work?
God stripped who? Who's it talking about?
Well, I'll bring it out to you. Exactly. It's talking about the enemy, and I happen to have it right here.
Okay.
So who is our enemy? Who's our adversary? That's the question. And if you can't answer the question, so here it is, Colossians 2:15. I'll actually go back to 14. Having canceled and blotted out and wiped away the handwriting of the note with its legal decrees and demands, which was enforced and stood hostile against us.
Yep.
This note, with its regulations, decrees, and demands, he set aside and cleared completely out of our way by nailing it to his cross. God disarmed the principalities and powers that were raged against us and made a bold display and public example of them in triumphing over them in it on the cross.
That's got to be the Amplified Bible you're reading, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Interesting. So what are you saying that he nailed to the cross? Are they talking about the Christ, or are they talking about
well, who did he disarm?
And blah, blah, blah. Who did he disarm?
I mean, I'm just asking. I mean, if I go to Ephesians 6:12, Paul tells me he lists a whole kingdom out here. And you see, this is the minds that they're doing to us. They're scrambling the brains. You have to go back and then ask yourself, then who is Satan?
Exactly.
Who is our adversary?
And if you look at it, he's almost tying in, he's confusing the whole imagery of Satan and this Jesus character.
Oh, I mean, I love the next part. Now, this is the Amplified. Therefore, let no one sit in judgment on you in matters of food and drink, or with regard to feast days, or new moon, or Sabbath.
Yep.
Do Christians do worship on the new moon? I'm just asking.
Apparently, it looks like, you could make an argument that the early church, or at least the followers of the apostles, may have been still respecting and honoring the holy day system, including the seventh-day Sabbath.
Boy, it gets really messed up here, doesn't it?
It does.
So now we get into Rome. And I have contended, when I figured it out, that this has been nothing more than the biggest mind coitus of mankind. They have kept us under bondage and submission to an ideal that doesn't exist. No foundation. And here's the weird thing about it, Jeff. Then what do you do with the evidence that there is a Satan, that there is a devil? I mean, there's hard evidence to validate that. Well, what if, and I just say what if, we created it ourselves? We manifest from the ether into the physical these deities.
I did a show I guess it's been many years ago now, probably at least 3 years ago. And I think I called it White Steeples and Black Magic. Did the church create the devil? And I think there is an entity out there that is the devil, that has been created by all of this manifest intention of people being afraid of the devil. And whether he was actually a literal entity or not before, he has become a very powerful and strong thought form / tulpa because of all this manifest intention from Christian people on this devil. I mean, Wayne, you've been a Christian before. People talk about the devil at least as much as they talk about Jesus in Christian circles.
Hell, in church, he had more power than the Christ himself.
He did.
I mean, every week, come down here. The devil's been attacking me here. The devil's been, and I'm going, well, wait a minute. I got the book here. It says he's been dead. They got him.
Yep.
So what's going on? I have a cough drop, so pardon me on this. But
okay.
My question then, what does it say about the Jesus story? I mean, come on. If you find cracks in one side of the story, are you telling me there's a demarcation line that goes, well, the crack goes right up here and can't go no further? I think the whole thing is fracturing.
It is. The whole thing is crumbling and falling apart.
So I'm all about understanding who is God, what is Christ, because the Gnostics believed in the ascension to a position that would entitle you to be a Christ. Not looking for a physical person to fit what the trait, the zephyr, the attributes that the divine has put into us. So if that has been compromised, taken away from us, Jeff, then the next question I want to know is why?
Well, I think you know the answer. I think you're just being rhetorical. Of course, the reason they did it is to confuse us from the fact of knowing that we are divine, we are sovereign, we are free, we are Elohim in training, as it were, and the realization comes from within. We don't have original sin. We've got the spark of divinity, and we are the Christ. And like I was saying to Rex and making Rex all nervous, the time of Yahweh is past. We are the new gods. We just have to manifest our position.
And it lends back to your point from the very beginning in the interpretation of who was the adversary.
Right.
If it is, in fact, Yahweh. You know, I asked the question last night, Jeff.
April asked, can man really reach Christhood? Absolutely.
That's why he was created.
Yeah.
Listen, the Gnostics believe we are angels. We are divine spirits.
Absolutely.
We have been in this, trapped in this thing. And that then gets into a whole new place, but let's stay focused in on the subject matter. Yes. So who is the adversary? Why is it everyone in the world, let's say Christians, think that the center of the earth was in Israel, Palestine, when we have rich evidence that shows that is the opposite? But yet, everyone in conversations talking about Christians and they get into the Bible, they'll start quoting the Old Testament like it was their culture. Like somehow no one else in the world was evolving. Just these tribes. And that's all they were. They were nomadic tribes. We had China building walls. We had India with flying vermas. I mean, come on. This is the biggest God spell ever. And we are the biggest threat because when we attack, and it is an attack because this has to be attacked. Otherwise, these self-made devils stand and block our way from ever evolving to a higher point of consciousness, Jeff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And isn't it interesting that we've made our own greatest enemy?
Yeah.
But the good news is the only way that, or the easiest way, and maybe the only way to get rid of a thought form or a tulpa is to just quit thinking about them, quit giving them energy, and they will die.
We have said this last week when the show.
Yep.
The best way to kill a god is to stop believing it.
Exactly. And this self-manifested God, really, you've made Satan God. They even call him God of this world. All we have to do is quit believing in him, and we'll take away all his power, and he will literally disintegrate before our eyes.
And whoever and whatever is taking the form, and what I find is that it manifests itself in so many different cultures. The idea has so spread. It's like a fine tapestry, Jeff, that you find it's pure white, but then you see that one blue thread going through it. It takes your eyes from the whole field, because that's what's the one thing that now has contaminated the thought line. It's permeated in every religion. If you see that you basically have a dichotomy, you can't have good without the evil. You have to have someone opposing the good in order to justify the good and the way the good is interpreted. Then that leaves basically a very open, ambiguous definition of what the bad is. In this case, in Christianity, it's Satan.
Yeah. And you can't have, just a random thought, you can't have any game without an opponent.
Exactly.
And life is a game. It's just, I talked about this a few days ago. It's only, you're in a game. The question is, are you going to be playing your own game, or are you a pawn in somebody else's game?
And because this game's been going on a long time.
It has.
So when we get to Osiris and Dionysus, you have to understand, as I showed up there, I'm
glad to see that Lyndon is not using his wife's account anymore. That was a little creepy.
Excuse me. So as we begin to look at this is what's so interesting. When we talk about the God-man shows up in every religious belief. The God-man would be the Son of God. He would be endowed with such special deity. He would have to be tried and tested, and eventually he would die for his people, and that he would then conquer death and then raise from the grave 3 days later in triumphant celebration over that.
Which is a story that existed 3,000 years before Christ. And my favorite idiot bumper sticker of all is "Keep Christ in Christmas." Christmas existed 3,000 years before there ever was a Christ.
In fact, that was the day of Dionysus' birthday.
Yep.
And the weird thing about it is that Dionysus dies sometime between March and April. Because
about that?
Yeah, kind of, it's that you're just never really clear on this whole thing. I want to get back to the Gnostics. And the Gnostics were branded pagans.
Gary says, keep X in Xmas. That's good. The Gnostics were branded pagans, which has become a cuss word. And all it really means is either A, country dweller, or B, in our context, anyone that is holding to a religious belief that is outside of the dominant paradigm of religious beliefs for that area.
Jeff, you have talked on this. I've talked on this. Everyone should get a copy of the Nag Hammadi scriptures. This is what blew the lid off, so to speak. When these were discovered in 1945 by an Arab farmer, and they found these documents, there we go. So, folks, what happens here? Do you know the original Christians believe in reincarnation?
Absolutely.
You know why? Tell them, Jeff. Why did they believe in reincarnation?
You tell them, Wayne.
Well, I'll tell you why. Because they knew the trap. This is a trap you get caught. Eventually, we're all going to figure it out. It's going to be on the other side, but I can assure you there is good foundation for these. If you want to go to the Christian belief system, then why reincarnation? Because one lifetime, you're not going to figure it out. you probably won't be able to figure it out in 100 lifetimes. And the fact of the matter is, the Gnostics believed, the pagans, that our beginning goes way back.
Way back. What do you think of
Way.
my assertion that the Christ manifested 30-ish AD in order to give us a path where we could complete this in a single lifetime?
Yeah. No, I listen. Do I believe that the message that was given, if you take just the message, you synthesize, you just take it, the fact, what is it said? If you love your neighbor as yourself, you know,
Right?
you
Love
fulfill,
yourself, love your neighbor as yourself.
yeah, you have fulfilled the highest commandment. Well, that on the surface seems pretty simple, right? But no one's done it.
Yeah.
Just the image of the Christ man, the God man. Why? Because he was the path that led to the infinite being, back to the creator. And
This just fell out of my bookshelf. Demonology by King James, the guy that wrote the King James Bible, writing a book about demons. You ought to read this. It'll blow your mind.
You know, folks, that is exactly the point. Everything about the devil, Satan, y'all should get this in your library. I have it on the other side. That this now becomes the point that I want to make. If we know it's been manufactured, at some point in time, Jeff, the pendulum has to swing back the other way. We become what I would call emboldened. We become more powerful. We have weapons now because, like you said, disbelief. When I asked you yesterday, when you were in that jungle and the shaman came in,
yeah.
You know, what was the difference there? Was it the fact it was the name of Jesus, or was it the fact that your faith in that name superseded his faith?
Somebody asked me to show this book again. Demonology by King James, written by King James. Very interesting.
And while you're at it, take it to the next step and find out why you have Shakespeare writing your Bible.
Exactly.
And why is it that the royal family still gets a royalty for every Bible sold?
I did not know that, Wayne. Is that verifiable? Do we know that for sure?
Well, it's the King James Bible. Remember, it is the only authorized version. Wow. Of the family, of the royal family, folks. You don't know who the royals are. Why do you think they're profiting off of your belief system?
That is powerful.
You know, folks, it's a mind coitus all the way through until you finally wake up and you start ask the questions. Listen.
I'll do a teaching on this book. There seems to be a lot of interest in it. I'll do a teaching on it.
I'll be part of that. I want to be in that one because that, folks, when you understand this guy's mind, man, he was one messed up dude.
He was I mean, even if we just want to be polite, and he was definitely a twisted individual.
And I've said this time and time again. Anytime you read something,
Tom, stop with the pancakes thing. I told you I'm hungry.
I'm going to get some after we get finished.
Me too, if the restaurant's still serving them by the time we get done.
So I want to talk real quickly about what the pagans did, the Gnostics. This was what they lived to attain to.
So when we should say that the Gnostics were pagans, but not all pagans were Gnostics.
Correct. Correct. Well said, my friend. They were, and they said that this as well when they were out in society. They were models of virtue and learning, regarded as Puritans, strict vegetarians. They preached nonviolence towards all things and shunned temple cults that practiced sacrificing of any animal or blood spilling. They were forced to live on the fringes of acceptability. They organized into communities, and as they came together in communities, they shared all that they had so each could pursue the path to ascension.
That's awesome. Now, Wayne, let me ask this question. Was asked in the chat room. Are you saying that King James was twisted or that Shakespeare was twisted?
Oh, both. Hey, listen, Francis Bacon, can you
Who
spell
was
it?
Shakespeare? Francis
Who was
Bacon.
Shakespeare? This dude was a magician. You guys don't figure it out. Shakespeare knew the mysteries. We don't understand these things, folks. It was the goal of every Gnostic to become an initiate into the mysteries. And you can read about the initiation by Plato, Sacrotes. You can read it all there. It's replete in history. The initiates, once you were, in fact, an initiate, that was just the beginning of you understanding the sacred knowledge. And apparently, part of that sacred knowledge is, in fact, learning who you are. You are, in fact, a divine being. Once you understand that, then you, as they say, you put to death all of the gods. And all of the gods are the ones that you have created that stand in your path as you continue to ascend higher. Jeff, that was the purpose.
It is the purpose.
And the teachings of the Christ, the Sophia, the yin and yang, was the secret of understanding. As they said that when initiates would come out, Plato, they said that there would be many times that he would be talking and all of a sudden he's gone. He's staring off into space, and he would sometimes stay in that position for 18 hours. And he would come back, pick up where he was talking about. And they asked where he went. And he said, I was communing with the divine. Now, Jeff, that's where I want to get at.
And this was Plato.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
So now when you begin to see the parallels of how they had to take the knowledge, Jeff, and pervert it. Because Christianity, and here's the other thing. I told someone this the other day. I said, oh, so you're a Catholic. No, I am not a Catholic. I am a Southern Baptist. Oh, guess what?
What?
Siri's listening.
Oh, Siri's listening again.
Yeah. Okay. And all right. That was weird. So where were we at? I lost that thought when Big Brother was listening.
It threw me too. I don't remember what we were talking about.
Well, the point is here, folks, Christianity, all I know I was going with, is in fact, it is a belief system. Oh, it was the Catholics. And he said,
I'm not a Catholic.
I'm not a Catholic. He said, I'm a Baptist. And I said, but wait a minute. Where did this start from?
Yep.
Well, he said, we make no claim to their beliefs. And I said, but you got their Bible. He said, this is what he said. It had to come from somewhere, I guess. And I said, yeah, it did. So, Jeff, all I'm saying, I'm not against any religion. Listen, if that's what you want to do it. But I think you need to understand that there is a alternative point of view that has now surfaced. What the literalists did, and we can thank Constantine. You know, we have this perverted view of Constantine. We think that he is the champion of the Christian faith. This guy was not what people think. Do you know when he returned from the convention there at, was it Nice? Nicene? Where was it at? They did their convention with the assembling the canonized scriptures.
Right.
When he got back to Rome, do you know what he did to his wife? Suffocated her. Do you know what he did to his son? Murdered him. It was then after
Constantine.
Yeah, this is Constantine, the champion of the Christian faith. So the thing is, he mandated the practice of baptism. In other words, for you to be saved, you have to be baptized. Here's the strange thing about it. He never got baptized until he was on his deathbed because he believed that once he got baptized, he'd be absolved of all of his sins.
Oh, and he wanted to do it before when he could not sin anymore.
Exactly. And, I look at this. So when the literalists were presented with the Gnostic facts, St. Jerome, who is in fact probably the biggest forger of the Christian faith, he did more forging. He altered Josephus's records. He was the one who altered the term in Isaiah 14 talking about Lucifer. Lucifer was never in that. That was his insertion. And when confronted by it, it is said that he said it best suited the person. But Lucifer doesn't exist.
Right.
So what they did, when it was known that the Osiris Dionysus story was out there, the Pope stated, this was a diabolical mimicry of the devil. And they said that the devil could see into the future, and therefore he created an exact copy of the Christ before the Christ was born in order to confuse the future believers.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I mean, Jeff, I know we're just on a tangent here, but this is nuts.
Yeah, you can't believe history because history was faked by the devil before it was history. So you would think that it wasn't really history. Come on.
That's what it is.
And think about it. What are those that fail to learn from history doomed to do?
Live it again.
Repeat it.
So here's where I'm at. And I don't know how long we've been on, Jeff, but I know
we've been on 42 minutes.
Okay. Here's the thing. Excuse me. I wanted to go back because why is it everyone of the Christian denominational faith, and even to a greater extent, the Islam faith, want to make claim to this little tiny country, the Hebrews? The Hebrews were, when they went into Egypt, right? And you go with the story, if you're believing the story that Joseph ascended, and I can't find him in the Egyptian record. Can you?
Joseph?
Yeah.
As in Joseph, the
Potiphar, yeah.
Yeah. I've never looked for him, to be honest with you. I never was that interested in Joseph.
Well, I found it interesting because if you believe the Old Testament, then Joseph plays a very big role. Because if he ascended to the rank of second in command, only to Pharaoh being hired.
We're talking about Joseph in Egypt. I thought you meant Joseph who was married to Mary.
No, the
okay,
Hebrew.
Yeah. All right, I understand Joseph. Go ahead.
Yeah. I can't find him in the antiquity of the Egyptians.
Really?
I challenge you to go out and find me a picture of him.
So it's almost like he was fake, huh?
Well, hey, it gets even a little more stranger.
But what about his coat of many colors, Wayne?
I wasn't there. I mean, these were nomadic people. I don't think people really get this whole idea. And their customs, they didn't have a Bible, folks. They didn't have scripture. And somehow or another, you put all of your bank in on these characters. And so let's go with the story. All right, let's say they did, in fact, migrate to Egypt, right? They were there 490 years. It has been proven by sociologists, paleontologists, those who study societies. Do you know how long it takes a society to become basically assimilated into another culture?
I do not.
2 generations. Less than 40 years. How long were the Hebrews there? 490 years.
So they were thoroughly Egyptian.
Listen, what was their belief system? I mean, I'm just asking, how did Hebraic beliefs evolved in Egypt?
That's a great question.
Where did they learn these blood sacrifice? Where did they learn these feast days, these tabernacles? Where did they learn this? Who taught them this?
Mm-hmm.
Now,
it either had to come from Egypt or Babylon.
Bingo. Had to have been one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the interesting thing, and I'll give respect to Moses's native name, Moshe. Moshe was an initiate. He was well versed in the mysteries, and as I told you last night, he was a high priest.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, when did the rebellion of Moses take place? It was when he was 80 years old. I think by the time you're 80 years old, you have pretty well been, and particularly in Egypt, where the lifespan of longevity was 30, 35 years at the max. Moses is now 80 if you go with the story.
Wow.
So now we get even to even crazier things. So Moses knew of the story of Osiris and Dionysus. And he only knew it as Osiris because Dionysus was the Greek part of the Egyptian. He knew about the God-man. He knew how to create out of the ether. And then you get into this whole thing with the encounter with what? Pharaoh's seers, magicians. Those were his brothers. He taught them.
Oh, that's, people don't think about that. So they probably, so Moses did at least know these guys, and you're saying they were his brothers. Somebody just said that Romania is the most ancient country on earth. That's interesting.
That's interesting. I don't know. I'd like to look into that. So to finish out this, so of course, Moses would be a master above the apprentices. And one take.
So you may be saying that it wasn't because the Lord was so powerful that Moses was able to overcome those magicians. It's because Moses probably taught those fools.
He did. It's a fact. He was of the house of Pharaoh. Now, of course, do we have any record of him being in the house of Pharaoh? No, none. But they covered that pretty well because we know that he angered his brother, that supposedly removed Moshe from anything of the Egyptian record.
Okay.
Yeah, because you can't go back. Now, listen, the Egyptians were known that if one particular family or Pharaoh happened to upset the next one, they did remove records. They did. We've seen it before.
Here's a good point I wanted to say before it rolls on. Lyndon's talking about, okay, Amen Ra. Is that how are they paying homage to him by saying Amen at the end of their prayers?
Yes, absolutely. What I'm trying to drive here, I believe that if in fact these Hebrews did in fact leave, there wasn't a million of them that left. I mean, number one, I challenge everyone to give me the logistics of how you keep 1 million people alive a day for 40 years in the Sinai Desert. No matter what you got, it's just it. But here's the point.
Yeah, the numbers are skewed.
I do believe that they did escape. And I believe why Pharaoh was coming after him, Moshe left with the sacred knowledge. I believe he invoked this God that they call Yahweh. I believe they invoked a portal to bring him in. And when he came in, he did exactly what his nature was. The Egyptians, if you read the Egyptian record, this Yahweh God kicked their butts.
Right.
In a way that they had never seen before. They never even heard of this God. And they did say it was the God of the slaves. So it kind of validates the point. If you look at Hebraic mysticism, the Kabbalah, that it actually was the Kabbalah that existed before the Torah was even brought into existence.
Now, do you think they might have also stolen some technology?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep. Listen, no matter how you look at what happened in Desert Storm, we know the elite forces went into the Baghdad. You know where they went? They went to the museum at Baghdad. And whatever they crated up and boxed out of there, it's... So, yeah, I do believe that Moshe...
Pure speculation, but why would Yahweh have brokered a deal with the Hebrews unless maybe they had something to trade with them. Were they able to acquire the Mhulu and work a deal with them or something like that?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because there is a belief in Kabbalism that there were 10 deities initially, and Yahweh was one of 10. And they had divided the earth up, and that the portion of land that Yahweh got is, as we all can see, was very small, very narrow, very constricted. And as to further validate this, if you go into the Hebrew or the Old Testament, you can't find Yahweh attacking any god. You can't find Yahweh attacking any country. He stayed within his boundaries. And he was powerless when Moloch came in. I've often questioned this. Why didn't Yahweh challenge Moloch? Listen, the belief of Moloch, folks, wasn't just a couple of year thing. No, this was multi-generational. Now, we get the story of when the Philistines, they stole the Ark of the Covenant. We've got the story about what happened. But that is not so unusual. We know, even as Rex said when he had ordered that book, there are certain objects that have attachment of very negative power.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, this was the deity. If the Ark and Covenant did, in fact, exist, then it would have been a power base of a unit that only the Levitical priest, the high priest, would have known how to work it. If it was, in fact, what I think more radioactive, that those fools opened it up, and that would be the only thing you think about it that would cause cancerous sores.
Fascinating. Yeah.
It caused tumors. What did the Philistines do? They made idols of the tumors of gold and silver, put it in the ox cart with the Ark of the Covenant, and let the ox go wherever it was going to go.
That's a crazy story.
It is a crazy story, but if you look at every story has a foundation or a morsel of truth, I concluded it had to be radioactive. These people got burnt radioactively. It was something that validates what I said all along, that this deity brought technology.
Well, why would he have entered into a deal with the Hebrews? What was in it for him?
Well, because you and I are still discussing him right now. That gives him faith. He pulls on the energy of that. A spoken name. Did
he not have a people before that?
I find no record of it. Okay. Listen, I contend that...
Somebody says, where's the ark? Meow.
I don't know. But
I think the Elohim took it away from Yahweh, and they've got it
hidden
away somewhere.
So I contend who Abraham met was not who Moses met. Abraham met Enki or Eniel. Abraham knew he was Samaritan. For him to have gone to a foreign god, that would have been impossible. Because if you want to go back to the story of the Anunnaki, of Enki and Eniel, and Nemesis and Ea, the rest of them, and Ayu, well, it would make sense that Abraham would have recognized a potential deity to make a covenant with. And again, the strange thing is that here we have a breakaway from what was traditional, because now you've got the blood sacrifice entering in.
Right.
And I still say that when you bring in human blood, it has a power to it. It has a life force to it. And although the body may be dead, the life force is still alive.
Yeah. So Yahweh essentially is a blood magic god.
Unless someone can come and counter that,
And if you look at all the great quote unquote acts of Yahweh, I defy you to find a great act of Yahweh that was not preceded by a great outpouring of blood.
And by the way, as is it above, so it is below. The Catholic Church, the Christian Church, how many bodies lie on the pyres of this religion?
Well, how there's a reason why, Wayne, they do the mass every day. They're ginning up some blood magic. And you see that, I remember it used to be that the communion was only done once a year
Yeah.
in Roman Protestant churches. Now they're doing it once a month, sometimes more than that. They got to gin up some more blood power.
Yeah. And, people they
And I
don't.
was just about to say that, Diane, the vampire god of the Bible, if you look at the whole lore of blood, and I mean, we even, with our quote unquote fiction, they are always making sure that we remember and understand the power of the blood.
Yes. Always the blood. And we got brainwashed. I mean, I took communion. I tell you, my God, I'd be crying and thank you, Jesus. I've got you now. I'm taking healing into my body. Listen, you gin this up in your head, folks, and that then is combined with the guy next to you, right? Because he's watching you and going, oh shit, I can even get like this guy.
Yeah,
He's touching something here. I want to touch this. And I say the whole thing, the reason why churches are so dead is that people have been searching for the supernatural, and what they get inside is the alternatural.
very good. I love that point. It is the alternatural.
It is. It alters you. It alters your
Come to the altar.
Bingo.
Be a sacrifice and get altered.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's so good.
And we go up
Write that
there
down.
just like sheeple, I'm going up to the altar now. Yeah, you are.
That you literally parade up there like a bunch of sheep. You
Yes.
kind of go up there together, like you move like a sheep, and you're out there. It's exactly like being corralled to an altar of sacrifice. It's in what does the Bible say? The sheep, like the dumb sheep, is led to the slaughter.
Yeah, yeah. And and then what happens afterward, folks? After the spell is cast over you, and you have to speak it out. That's why they tell you have to say it.
Yeah, you can't pray the sinner's prayer silently. You've got to speak it out because you've got to pronounce that curse over yourself. You've got to activate that virus within you.
And then what did they do at the end? And this goes back, folks, thousands and thousands of years. What does this do? Clapping ignites the spirits.
Wow. That's
clapping.
deep. I never thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, think about when you were in the jungles. It was the rhythm.
Yeah.
And it brings forth the spirits, and then the spell is thus cast in. And the interesting thing, those that the spell really takes a hold of, they're the ones that call the pastor up or someone on the church staff within a week or so because they're confused. They're having a real difficult time accepting the experience they went through. Yeah. But what happens, you come back into the sanctuary where, in fact, the spell is recast again, because normally what you're going to do, the two of you are going to pray. And that's when you bind that prayer. And you always say it where there's two or more gathered. I mean, it's a mind. The Bible, the New Testament, is nothing more than alchemy.
Wayne, everybody's upset they can't hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll get right there. So the point is, the New Testament is alchemy. Pure and simple.
I think it bothers people, Wayne, because at home, if the sound isn't exactly right, all they have to do is pick up their remote.
Yeah.
But when it's not at home, they don't get instant gratification, and people really get.
I'm sorry.
Vociferous about things. I'm like, take a deep breath.
So this, I think, Jeff, as we started this morning out, it's about breaking the spell of delusion over our lives. And the older you are, the harder it becomes. It's just the way it is. Listen, the Matrix was right. When Morpheus told Neo, we don't wake up a mind past a certain age.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. And you don't think that's something that we should follow, do you?
I think just the fact that you and I are talking, and the fact that whether we have one person or we have 50 people in here, doesn't matter. The fact that we're speaking this is countering that spell.
I agree.
And there are more and more voices coming and we're waking up from this. People, I had one guy actually say, he said, "You're not afraid of dying and going to hell?" I said, "I don't believe in hell."
Exactly.
I mean, you know, if you go in the concept of hell, let's talk about this for a second. I got to sense someone's really needing to hear this. Is this point, Jeff? They say that you're going to be tormented for the rest of eternity.
Good morning,
Well,
Heidi.
for what? Who's going to do the tormenting? What, you're going to tell me a demon that was created below me is going to have power over me to harm me? Oh,
Or even this, Wayne. Let's say take the most evil person that people can think of, Hitler.
yeah,
Hitler lived 70 some odd years, right?
right.
So Hitler lived 70 some odd years. So he's going to be tortured and burned and stewed forever and forever and ever and ever and ever for 70 years of evil. And not to mention the fact, if you follow Christian theology, as soon as he died, he went to hell and started burning. He never even got a fair trial.
No. I mean, you're executed.
That is not a moral system. That is not a legal system. That is not a just system. Therefore, ergo, it is not a system initiated or created by the true God of the universe.
No,
it's a lie.
It's a lie. It's a man-made
control tactic.
Thank you. And folks, we have got to get out of this fear. It permeates our lives. Listen, you don't think that there are times when I can have sudden feelings of...
I mean, Heidi Vandenberg was having anxiety attacks about going to hell.
Yeah.
When she was a young.
Well, I think, Jeff, a lot of people still have anxieties of it. I mean, you know, that moment of death is going to come for all of us. The question is, are you really going to stick with what you really believe, or are you going to fall back on that which you were taught?
Yep.
I mean, seriously, Jeff.
It's the ultimate fear tactic. A lot of people come to the place where they are about to receive enlightenment, but they stop because they don't want to go to hell.
Yeah. They really do believe in this. And folks, what I'm trying to say, Jeff, as well, if you
know, the Jehovah's Witnesses actually have a good truth about hell. If you know what they teach about hell, you know, as strange as it is, they came upon the truth that, you know, it's really just based on Sheol, which was the garbage pit outside Jerusalem. There is no hell.
Interesting. I had forgotten about that.
Yeah.
So listen, I think the Gnostic wisdom, Jeff, they tried to burn it. Listen, they burned the books, and they burned the people. You know, have you heard the Cathars? What they did to the Cathars?
I have, and you were talking about that last night. And folks, remember the library at Alexandria, the great repository, the great repository of knowledge, was burned by Christians, folks, by Christians.
Yes, indeed. And when they came and started conquering the Americas, I mean, it was just one burning pile. I like that.
Wayne, maybe that's a new thing. If we can't get people to take the truth orally, let's turn it into a suppository.
I think we found the...
You saw that coming, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. That was great. I knew it was some way it was going to ease its way in, but...
Oh my.
Okay. Well, you know, laughter does the heart as a good medicine. And
it does.
I hope everyone can realize, folks, listen, waking up to the truth is never easy. Jeff, they didn't make it an easy path for us.
No, you got it. Like Henry Ford said, thinking is the hardest work there is. That's why so few people engage in it.
Yes. And that's why, you know, as Heidi was saying, you know, we become last night lightning bolts, you know, because the dark forces, I have contended with this, Jeff, and you've heard me on this, and I know maybe some people think I'm out there, but I'm not. If you take the literal point in the beginning was God, and God said, "Let there be light." The only way you can interpret that, folks, is that darkness existed before this light.
Yep.
Now, I contend this light that was created is an artificial light. The true light is the light we can't see now, Jeff. We won't be able to see it until we pass over through the portal of life.
And that's interesting. Rudy is saying that he's positing that they cleared out all the texts from Alexandria before they burned it, and now they've got them stored away in the Vatican.
Hey,
that's an interesting thought.
Those rat bastards. I mean,
You
we
never
don't know. You don't know. I mean, they say, how far do those catacombs go down underneath the Vatican?
A long way.
Long way. And I do believe they have sacred knowledge. I really do.
Absolutely.
You know,
and they've got it locked away for a reason, and nuclear, proof. And and you talk about stuff locked away and caverns and stuff. You guys out there in Denver are sitting on top of a whole bunch of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we are.
And
Jeff,
Salt Lake City too, or that place outside of Salt Lake where the Mormons have their hardened structures and everything, all the genealogical records, and who knows what else.
When we were talking, I had this vision in me suddenly. Jeff, we're the ones that are going to be burning the walls down in Rome.
I don't know what you mean.
It is the thought that is being birthed that dispelling this myth will be the one proverbially to burn down Rome.
Yeah, absolutely. I've often made the analogy, and it ties in perfectly for us to. It's time for us to grab the torches and grab the farm implements and storm the castle. That's exactly what you're saying.
Well, I got that image when you spoke that just as clear as.
Oh, I love that. That gives me goosebumps and a good gives me confirmation. I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Yep. So
let's go ahead and wrap this up, Wayne. We're about 6 minutes over. Tell us, Lyndon's tuning his fiddle to play while Rome burns. Absolutely. Tell people where they can find you.
R. Wayne Steiger over on YouTube. And Jeff, I just appreciate the opportunity each Sunday to come in and allow a forum to where we can discuss controversial by all means, but I think also revolutionary ideas that say, listen, if this doesn't make sense, we need to come back and say, well, what is the counter?
Yep.
And this is what we do. I'm not saying, is this all truth? Folks, I'm like you. I'm still searching.
Absolutely. And that's the key, is never stop searching. What they say in Galaxy Quest, what was it? Never give up, never surrender.
Never surrender. Yes. And we're going to continue to do it. And listen, I do believe that the powers to be, Jeff, find us to be. I do believe that I'll end it with this. On my whiteboard over here, I have written, light has no color, no visible characteristics whatsoever. I believe we are that light.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
So,
and I'm going to try to seek some pancakes right now.
I'm going out and talk to my wife as well.
Folks, thank you so much for being with us. For R. Wayne Steiger and the R. Wayne Steiger channel, I'm Jeffrey Daugherty, the Christian Whistleblower. This has been the Gospel Truth on Sunday morning, and I really am going to see if the restaurant down the road is still serving pancakes. We'll see you again along the way today. Wayne, thanks for being here. Thanks to everybody in the chat room. We salute you for seeking truth. Love yourselves, love each other, be kind to each other, make the change you want to see, and stay fearless, my friends.
Do it.